Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to answer a question from commenter Brian Eno 608. Better be a real name. Don't taunt me like that. Anyway, Brian Eno asks, what's one of your biggest Fallout related regrets, specifically story-wise or a feature you could never get working in on time? Okay, I'm going to assume you mean development of Fallout and not like I regret walking away from the whole IP. So I'm going to break that into two parts because I have a different answer for Fallout 1 than I do for Fallout 2. So for Fallout 1, my biggest regret is companion AI. I've talked about this in another video, but companions were added to the game so late in development that there was very little time to get any AI in for them. When they were first put in, they were handled via script. And I think they basically just followed the player around and shared any hostility flag that the player would have. So anything mad at the player, they would attack. I had very little time to do any specific code for the companions, so they ended up using the code I'd written for Fallout Enemy AI, the NPCs for that. It was not written for companions to use. There was so much stuff that is funny when an enemy does it, but you don't like it when your companion does it in combat. You know, Ian with an Uzi is a perfect example. It was funny and you kind of liked it if a super mutant with a minigun shot at you and tore up all of his friends that were standing between you and that super mutant. But it's far less funny when Ian does it and he shoots at somebody with his Uzi on full auto and you happen to be between him and his target. That's a lot less funny because we also implemented critical failure in Fallout. Critical failures of your companions with their weapons could be really hurtful to you if they ended up shooting a friend or the weapon exploded or something like that. But it turns out it's not just combat AI that I regret not having time to spend on the companions. There was a lot of code that even at the time companions went in, I made like a list of things I need to get to, but there were other features that were planned for and also bugs that were coming in that were really high priority, like crash bugs. So I didn't have time to get to it, but I went and looked in my notes. One of the big ones was movement. There was a ask to step aside that I really wanted to put in. So when a companion was blocking your way, you could say, could you just take one step? And they'd take a step in a direction that was open so you could get into a door or access a container. Just so you know, that was the very first piece of code I did when I started on Fallout 2, is that ability to walk up to a guard or someone and say, could you step to one side so you could get in? And because I remember that had to be done early because I wanted level designers to have the option for that NPC to go no. Like if you have an NPC who's deliberately standing in front of a door, you don't want him to move. A lot of companion interactions, especially things like giving them equipment and getting them to wield it. I wanted that to be a lot nicer than what we ended up shipping with. In theory, I wanted it to be a little paper doll, just like on the player. There was no time to do any of that stuff. I also wanted companions to level up. I wanted each one of them to have a level up scheme. I wanted them to follow it as the player leveled, they leveled too, just to make them stay useful throughout the course of the game. No time to do anything like that. The other one I remember writing down was I wish there was a way to tell a companion, wait here, I'll be back. So you could go and do something without them and then come back and get them. Having wait here would have helped Dogmeat survive the military base, and those flickering door force fields would have made that much easier. Had no time to do anything like that. Essentially, if you want to know what I wanted to do with companions, go look at what I did in Arcanum. Almost all of those things ended up being implemented in Arcanum, including the level up schema and telling companions to wait and you'll come back and get them. So that's my biggest regret for Fallout 1. For Fallout 2, it's an entirely different story. There was an area I had designed early on that also got cut early on called the Abbey of Lost Knowledge. I really, really, really wanted this in the game. It was based very superficially and directly on A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter Miller. That book was really influential in making Fallout itself, but I specifically wanted the Abbey as a direct homage to Canticle for Leibowitz. And the reason I wanted it in the game is it really made me curious to think that there was a different way for a group to revere the old world and old world tech besides what the Brotherhood was doing. And it was also very curious to me is how would a place that was so completely pacifistic survive? I wasn't sure I had all the answers to that, but I wanted to explore that as the Abbey got developed. I already knew that the quest I wanted them to do would be things like, there'd of course be things they need, just equipment, probably technical journals and stuff, not just to preserve, but to understand what it was they were putting in. They would probably send you out to retrieve things like blueprints and books and actual items. Now, the Abbey was as less interested in the items as they would be in the blueprints and the engineering manuals and textbooks that were used to create the items, because they wanted to preserve knowledge. That was their main thing, not so much artifacts, which is what the Brotherhood was more interested in. But I also knew that because of this, that puts them directly at odds with the Brotherhood of Steel. And I expected the Brotherhood of Steel to fight them, although I wasn't quite sure how the fight would work, because the Brotherhood of Steel would just roll over the Abbey. So that was something I expected to happen, is you discover the Abbey, they explain they're pacifists, and you're allowed to use anything in there. So you could use that really cool for looking up things. Maybe we put a crafting system in, but that would have been a cool place to go get information. And other quests for non-Abbey related things one step of it could have been you have to go to the Abbey and find where this secret military base was located, or how this item is supposed to be used, or where there may be a cache of energy cells or something. You could always go back to the Abbey to do research. But I also, as you befriended them, I saw them sending you out in quests to find rare blueprints and engineering manuals and textbooks and things like that. And then eventually, when the Brotherhood of Steel would hear about them, that would be a conflict, and they'd probably want you to deal with it. I don't know if that would be you wiping out the Brotherhood of Steel, you having to talk to them and reach an agreement that, hey, you have to leave the Abbey alone. Maybe you get them to join. I mean, maybe the Abbey can just be a Brotherhood of Steel knowledge vault. Of course, the Brotherhood would want to make that secret and make it their own, but that was something I planned to explore. And I'm trying to remember why it got cut. It was cut. I think it was even cut before I left. There was just so much stuff we were planning to do in Fallout 2. It was a bigger scoped game than 1, yet there was less than a year to do it. Even in February, before I left, we knew it was supposed to be done by that fall, and that is a tight schedule. Even given that all the systems and stuff were done, you know they'd have to be extended, and you know there'd be bugs, but that's a lot of content to make in about 8 or 9 months. So the Abbey got cut really, really early in the development process, but it always is in the back of my head of what would I have done with that, and it could have been an interesting way of exploring the Brotherhood of Steel or reflecting the Brotherhood of Steel, because the Brotherhood of Steel could have been a very different organization, and the Abbey would exist to remind them that there are different ways of preserving the past other than just finding it and keeping it for yourself. So those are my two big regrets. From Fallout 1, that companions were added so late that I couldn't support them in code. And for Fallout 2, that the Abbey of Lost Knowledge was never implemented and put in the game. So, Brian Eno, I hope that answers your question.